The United Nations is trying so hard to keep our rebel media journalists out of their big global warming conference in Marrakesh, Morocco. They've accredited 3,000 other journalists, including lobbyists, including bloggers, including student activists, literally anyone except us, because they say we have strong opinions. Well, not like these completely objective reporters at the last UN global warming meeting, literally squealing like they're teenagers at a Justin Bieber concert. Yeah, that's why we're being kept out, because we're not, in the words of the UN censor, Nick Nuttall, we're not sufficiently helpful.
I don't see what he's actually reporting, as being particularly helpful.
Well, as you know, we're going to send our 3 reporters to Marrakesh anyways, precisely because the UN doesn't want us there. And here's my big news today. Any world government that doesn't want us to report on their activities, any global governance that wants to keep us from finding out what they're saying and doing, well, that's a pretty clear signal that we absolutely have to be there to cover them precisely because they're so secretive. So I'm pleased to announce that we are going to expand our coverage of the United Nations. We are going to get a lot bigger. Starting today, I'm going to the United Nations headquarters in New York. I'm not going to give away my plans now because the UN censor will probably try to have North Korea or Saudi Arabia stop me at the door. I'll save the news for when I'm back. But we're planning to make this a permanent beat. For example, I am pleased to announce that we are going to send a team of 4 reporters to the next UN conference, their nanny state conference being held next month in New Delhi, India. We'll be sending fan favorites Faith Goldy and Lauren Southern, who've done amazing investigative journalism for us, and a 2-person crew, our managing producer Hannah Vanderkoy and our cameraman and editor Oliver McKenzie. We're also making plans to send a team to report on the laughable United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva later on. Now, I know that these sound like exotic locations, and they are. Funny how the UN never has their meetings in places like Sudbury. They prefer 5-star luxury, which is part of the point here. These are wasteful, entitled bureaucrats and diplomats who are living luxuriously at our expense. But unlike our local politicians, there's no way to hold them to account. You can't vote the UN out of office. It's not just their gold-plated ways. It's not just their hypocrisy as they all take private jets to meetings about global warming. It's how secretive they are, cooking up global treaties and policies that are then blindly adopted by member countries like Canada, even though those policies are never voted on in our parliament, let alone debated. It's the global government where this international elite makes decisions about our lives. That's what we're going to see in New Delhi next month. Faith, Lauren, and our crew will go to the World Health Organization's big conference called the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. It's the nanny state equivalent to the big global warming conference in Marrakesh. But it's not just about smoking, of course. It's a template for global taxes and regulations on soft drinks, snack foods, salt, trans fat, anything the UN wants to regulate. It's every single busybody from around the world cooking up schemes for telling you how to live your life. Aren't you curious about what they're going to say and do there? Aren't you curious about what Canada's delegation is going to say and do? And are you as certain as I am that whatever media will show up there will be just as fawning as the media at the global warming conferences? If you believe in our trip to Marrakesh, and if you believe in our trip to Delhi, and my quick visit to the United Nations headquarters, and our plans to cover the UN Human Rights Council, please help us out. Look, unlike the CBC, who get $1.5 billion each year from taxpayers, courtesy of Justin Trudeau, we're 100% user-supported. So if you don't think this is a good idea to cover the UN and global government, we won't do it, because we can't afford it to do it without you. But if you think it is important that we cover the UN, whether it's their global warming conference, or their nanny state conference, or their population control conference, or their small arms bans conferences, or when dictatorships like Saudi Arabia sit on the Human Rights Council and condemn democracies like Israel or America. If you think they need a good dose of independent, skeptical journalism, well, then please help, because we can't do it without you. We're doing our best to keep our costs low. We always fly on the cheapest flights we can find. We stay at low-cost hotels, but we don't want to scrimp on safety. Look, we're not living large like Peter Mansbridge, but it does add up. If you can help us, please go to rebelun.com. That's a special crowdfunding website we've set up that shows you exactly what our budget is. Plane tickets, hotel rooms, and all, right down to the dollar. Now, the biggest item will surprise you. It's our security costs. We want to be very careful about the safety of our reporters, especially, to be frank with you, the young women we are sending to cities that can be very dangerous. You can see all of the different costs there. For our next trip to the Nanny State Conference in Delhi, flights are $1,500 per person, and hotels for the week work out to about $2,000 per person. And the biggest cost, and I know it's shocking, is our security, more than $14,000 for the week. I won't get into the details of it for obvious reasons, but we simply insist on keeping our journalists safe. Altogether, our costs are nearly $30,000 for this mission. Now, faced with these high costs and faced with the censorship of the UN, some other media might throw in the towel. They might say, it's not bother. It's too much hassle. Or they might even obey the UN like the CBC does and just become cheerleaders or stenographers. Look, I have the opposite reaction. If the UN wants to keep me out, I say, let's lean into the wind. The UN doesn't want us to cover them? Well, then we better cover them even more. What are they hiding? Other journalists are so, what's the word Nick Nuttall said? So helpful and compliant that the UN rolls out the red carpet for them. That's a sign they're not really doing journalism, isn't it? Please visit rebelun.com. Help us buy our economy class airfare to the next UN conference in New Delhi. You can see exactly how much we're spending, and you can help us as much or as little as you like. If you care about holding the United Nations to account, I really can't think of a better way of doing it. You know that's true based on how much they hate us. Visit rebelun.com. And thanks. Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.